It all started a long time ago. We were in the same class. Her name was either Katerina or Christina, but from the first grade to the 10th, she was for us Pippi. Well, maybe someone else remembers. Pepilota Victualia Rulgardina, and so on. Aka, Pippi Longstocking, cheerful, living out of the rules, with an exuberant imagination, always ready to rush somewhere and organize something. Red-headed, funny. Everyone's friend and comrade, the only trouble of her school years. In high school, boys flatly refused to perceive her as a girl. Peppy. This is a friend, and friends do not fuck. Peppy was not upset by this circumstance. She was living quite well. There was prom night. Last call. Final exams and entrance exams. I lost sight of Peppy for a few years. Sometimes I thought about what an idiot I'd been and what a great girl I'd missed, especially after my ex-girlfriend called me with another hysterical screams about how such a bastard, broke and ruined her life. After sweeping back and forth in life, I seemed to finally settle down with work and housing, although my personal life still left much to be desired. Girlfriends came and went, none of them staying long. Days flowed by, one like two drops to the next. One weekend, I saw a truck pull up in front of our driveway. On the asphalt driveway were lined up chairs wrapped in polyethylene and a folded sofa, with the kitchen next to them. It always seemed to me that things taken out of the apartment looked very pitiful in an unfamiliar environment. Someone was either moving out or moving in. As I climbed the stairs, I found out that the housewarming party was taking place in the apartment, one floor below me. There used to be a quiet elderly couple with a fat, shrill pug. Then the old man died and the old lady and the dog moved out. I wonder who'll take their place. The movers hauled the furniture. The van roared to life and drove off. A couple of days later, I ran into a charming maiden coming out of the apartment. Short skirt, long legs, velvet eyes, like a doe's. At her feet was a child of 2 or 3 years old. We nodded to each other, as good neighbors should. We went outside, and the maiden, dragging her child behind her, went to the car, an empty Datsun of not the first youth. There was someone behind the wheel. The girl and the child got in and drove off. Living in an apartment building is a strange thing. You seem to be among people all the time, but you may not run into some of your neighbors for years. I still don't know who lives in the apartment on the 2nd floor, where there is a steel door without a number. And here, I was shaving from work. At the same time, parked driver Datsun. I glanced and stumbled, wondering. Not she. Peppy? Peppy, my thin, ringing classmate, had grown at least 3 or 4 sizes. She never grew a bust, and the former Peppy looked more like a Canadian lumberjack, but she hadn't forgotten her school nicknames. Jimmy, she marveled. Well, hello there. And they say, Megalopolis, Megalopolis. Listen, I have a beer here. Do you want, or do you have someone waiting for you at home? No. I'll just call my folks to tell them I've stumbled across a fossil from the past. Some things never change. Peppy was still an open-minded soul, unwilling to bend to fate. After a couple of hours, I knew almost everything about Peppy's life, from the last bell to the present day. An unsuccessful marriage, a child, a search for herself and her place in the world, a dozen jobs. Psychologist, courses, training, business. My friend, Peppy accompanied this word with a defiant smirk. Go ahead. Don't miss the chance to show your cynical male chauvinism. I grinned back understandingly, and we clinked bottles of Budweiser with the current rampant tolerance. Why should I care who the girl we were sitting next to at the next desk lived and slept with? Her pretty friend's name was Oksana. The baby's name was Sophia. They had been together for the 2nd year, and everyone seemed happy. I sometimes dropped by to visit them, to watch a new movie, or just to sit in the company. Sometimes Peppy visited me. Usually I try to stay away from small children. Some of them are shouty, obsessive, and completely insane. But Sonia was a happy exception. She didn't yell, didn't climb into my arms, didn't shove her toys with demands to get acquainted immediately. She sat quietly next to us and listened, hardly understanding 1 word out of 5. 3 girls lived in the most common 2-room apartment. Surprisingly, quickly turned it into a cozy family nest. My ex and I had never managed to do that. Despite the appliances we'd bought, the newfangled plasma and the feng shui stuff, I loved visiting them. Their house was soothing, suggesting that even in these lousy times, the proverbial family, well-being is achievable. They moved in early spring. In the fall, Sonia began to go to kindergarten. But in the winter, something began to fall apart. At first, imperceptibly, in small things. Sonia, the vivacious girl, began to look worse and was always sniffing her nose. They called me less and less often, Peppy when she came. Smoked cigarette after cigarette, but I couldn't ask her anything. A couple of times I caught them and Oksana quarreling by the car, with Sonia's sad face glistening through the icy glass. And I did not even know what to do. Other people's lives, as you know. Darkness. What's the use of my intervention if I don't even know what their problems are? And why would this couple share their secrets with a stranger? In winter, the day ends quickly, and the evenings drag on and on like a dull gray cloud, irritating and slowly driving me crazy. Who lived in the apartment we bought before? Peppy, which wasn't very often now, looked in and took the bull by the horns. They never complained that there was something. Like that in the house. Like that in the house. Never, I answered, honestly. I never heard anything from them anyway. The dog barked occasionally, but that's what a dog is for, to bark meaninglessly. They got flooded from upstairs once. The sewer burst. That's all. Peppy, what's going on here? Who would have known and told me? Peppy muttered. We've got some nonsense going on. Do you know what no is? In general, internet features, I nodded. It is at least in something concrete. Peppy angrily popped the bottle cap off the edge of the table. And things are disappearing. The wallpaper's wet. We've just put them up. Well done, well done. And they're wet, like the walls leaking underneath. It's annoying. The light bulbs are breaking all the time. And then there's these damn toys. What's wrong with them? Sonia's got 3 boxes of those damn stuffed animals. We put them in her room every night and every morning. They're all over the place. It's like someone's laying them out. Oksay ran to turn off the kettle the other day and nearly twisted her leg. I wanted to throw them out of spite. But Sonia got hysterical. Oksay, again. She paused for a long sip. Oksay wants to get a job, but she can't get one. Instead of a job interview, they give her some kind of a scam. Then they sell magic socks in the train. Then they simply and frankly start begging for her. Give me money from the doorstep. It makes her climb the wall and lash out at people. Sonia has endless colds. She doesn't have enough money for medicines. I can't sleep at night. It's stuffy. If you open the window, it's cold. I can't sleep at night. It's stuffy. Someone whispering in my ear, stomping under the bed. But it's nothing. She frowned. She wasn't the one who was attacked. I'm not afraid of anything. I'll have them all grunting and sobbing, having no practical experience of fighting. I did not dare to give advice. But I didn't envy the devil who decided to compete with our Peppy. With this one, we'll burn the apartment with virtual napalm and sweep the carcasses of defeated enemies over the threshold with a rotten broom. A week or two passed since that conversation. I don't remember exactly. New Year's Eve was approaching. At work, the traditional emergency and survival race had begun. The city was iced over in traffic jams and icicles because of the round. The clock snowfall, and I reached home hardly by midnight. I didn't even realize at once that the doorbell was ringing. Judging by the decisiveness of the call, it was Peppy. But behind the door was her girlfriend, who was Oksana. Scared, annoyed, and carrying a flashlight. The stairs behind her back were plunged into darkness. I said. I know it's idiotic, she said tiredly. Peppy told me to go and get you. We don't have any lights. We have some kind of crap crawling around the house. I'm scared. I'm gonna cry. Peppy won't explain anything. Just swears. Sophia's asleep. What do I do? In situations like this, I'm usually very eloquent. Here's what you do. You sit here. It's bright and warm. Kitchen kettle. Coffee. I'll lock the door. Take the keys and go rescue. Peppy, do you have your cell phone with you? We'll send panic texts if we need anything. She smiled languidly. She didn't even argue, and I went down the stairs, almost falling over, even though I'd run down them 1,000 times. Our building had small, standard apartments. The one where the 3 girls lived was a mirror image of mine, but today, their small hallway seemed endless. It no longer felt cozy, warm. It was cold, and I was scared shitless that I was going to trip over something, and it would be the hand or foot of dead Peppy, or I'd see her inside the big mirror on the bathroom door, and she'd knock and scream silently. And how would I explain to her that she was stuck inside the reflection? Peppy, I called out in a husky whisper. Here, she answered at once. Oksay is hiding at your place. That's right. Crawl over here. Listen. Peppy was sitting on the sofa in the living room, very calm and collected. She lit a couple of candles, but they didn't do much to dispel the darkness. But we're not in a gothic fucking castle. We're in a 3-by-3-meter room, and I can see the dark rectangle of the window and the flickering of the charging lights on the many gadgets. Yellow, green, and blue. Did you check the plugs? I asked, just in case. 3 times. There's no light, and these infestations don't care. Peppy sighed convulsively, like a big, tired animal. They seem to move around sometimes. That can't be, Jimmy. We're in the civilized world, in the middle of a huge city. There's no such thing as a no. Something slipped past me, quiet and creeping, like an autumn cobweb. I need to go and check on Sanja, Peppy declared. She paused and added, but I can't. Afraid. I didn't understand. I don't think I can get up, but contradicting her own words, she rose wearily from the sofa. I imagined thin white threads that reached for her and broke off. Maybe it was the synthesized material from the loose paneling. Peppy grabbed a candle, stumbling over scattered toys. We reached the second door with a stained glass window in the shape of a ship. I turned the knob, peered inside, and almost shrieked when I saw an ugly, heady figure frozen against the window. Then I realized that it was an ordinary computer chair with stuff piled on the back. To the left of the wall, there should be a large sofa where the child sleeps. And above the sofa, there was something hanging, something like a large, dark shawl hanging from the ceiling in folds. I wanted to ask why such a silly thing was hanging over the bed, but Peppy gave a strange shriek and stretched forward her hand with the candle. The flame shuddered and flickered, about to go out, and in those few moments we saw. Hell knows what we saw. I saw a dust rag, or whatever you want to call it, dangling in the air with no visible support and shaking. A face, Or was it a grinning face? I saw a sleeping child. I saw a sleeping child. I saw a flash of something white crashing violently into the stuff and floundering in the folds. Then, the white thing, with a quiet squeak, flew right under my feet, and the black cloth shrank and flowed upward to the place where the wall joins the ceiling and where the girls had a decorative narrow cornice attached. Bending over, I picked up what had hit my foot. It was a decorative rabbit with its belly ripped open, like a 6th or 7th grade anatomy poster. It twitched weakly, and I could feel its warm blood trickling down my arm and dripping onto the parquet. Someone had let his guts and entrails in, and they dangled outward in a knot of tangled pink and red muck. And then the candle went out. The rabbit gave one last flutter and apparently died. I realized I was going to puke right then and there. But Peppy had a dead grip on my shoulder, and we heard voices, like children's voices. Children who are very far away from us, but stubbornly trying to shout, to explain, to warn. A not very intelligible chorus of children's voices. They sleep in summer, but wake up in winter. They look for the weak, the defenseless. They seep in, flow black water from the other side. She is the mistress, the little mistress. We will protect her. They won't touch her. You don't touch us. My head was floating like a high fever. When consciousness is not with you, but dangling in a balloon 3 meters above your head. The voices were whispering, merging into one steady, flowing, rustling whisper. There was a clinking sound under the ceiling. The chandelier lit up. One bulb exploded. We stood on the threshold of the most ordinary children's room, filled with toys, pictures, advertising posters of cartoons and other nonsense, so dear to children. Woken up, Sonia sat up in bed and stared at us perplexedly, asking hoarsely, "Where is Rosochka? Ma, where is my Rosochka?" I belatedly put my hand with the dead animal behind my back and froze. I had a toy in my hands, a plush rabbit, exactly like a real rabbit, only plush, with a company label on its paw, perfectly intact. "Rose." The child saw the rabbit and reached for it. "Jimmy, why did you take Rosie?" She fell off the bed, and I tripped over her. I said with an effort, "Here." "Silly Rosochka," Sonia said sternly, pushing the rabbit under the covers. "Ma, is it still night?" "Night," Peppy confirmed in a frozen voice. "Go back to sleep. We heard something, and the lights went out, but it's all right now. Go back to sleep." She turned off the chandelier, but we couldn't leave right away. We stood on the threshold, feeling the eyes of bears and ponies, kittens and dragons staring at us from the darkness that had calmed down and become peaceful and unafraid. The eyes of the guard that never sleeps, never gets tired, never gives up its post until the little mistress grows up. Sanjay saw a husky the other day at the children's world the size of a real one, Peppy said slowly, closing the door. And she's got the biggest crush of her life. She, however, costs under 5,000. Do you think I should buy it? She has a whole lot of little things there. And at least this one will be healthy. It's dog, even though it's a stuffed dog. Buy it. I said yes. Tomorrow.